Hello everyone, today we are starting the story of a gamer who gets awakened as a player that he made in a virtual game during the height of his awkward phase in the middle school, giving him all the mannerisms and speech of an absolute cringlerd. Despite the challenges, he's determined to save the world from monsters that somehow slipped out of the game and into reality. Please leave a like as today's like goal is 1,500 likes. Hit the subscribe button for more videos. So let's start the story without any delay. The tale begins with a young black-haired man gazing into the bathroom mirror, questioning his identity as he observes a contrasting reflection of himself with white hair. He questions his reflection, asking who he is, and in a curious twist, the reflection questions him back. Simultaneously, they both respond. One side identifies him as Lee Hoyol, while the other claims him to be Granful Claudi Arpus Romeo, successor to a once illustrious clan. Later, while preparing and savoring a cup of tea, he reflects on how he has unfortunately become the character Granful whom he created 12 years ago during his second year of middle school. At the time of its creation, he had finished it with immense happiness and a touch of obsession. However, now he regrets it deeply, realizing that this character was conceived at the peak of his puberty. This entire situation stems from his involvement in the game History of the Arcana Continent, which held the status of being one of, if not the best virtual game and another world experience. He recalls that until the service for it was terminated, it remained unrivaled, achieving legendary status in the gaming world. However, the day the service for Arcana was terminated, coinciding with the news that CDL Raymond has gone missing, it marked a pivotal moment. Arcana seemingly manifested in the real world. Breaks in reality appeared throughout the world. Concurrently, monsters from the game began materializing, inciting widespread panic as people believed the world was on the brink of collapse. However, people were assimilated with their in-game characters. These players not only retained their skills from the game, but were also able to defeat the invincible monsters and save the world. Thus, they earned the esteemed title of heroes by saving the world from impending doom. Naturally, there were times when he also entertained fantasies of becoming a player. However, he soon confronted the harsh reality that even if he were to awaken his powers, he would not be that famous. The exorbitant cost of acquiring a single virtual reality machine, priced in the tens of millions won, proved insurmountable. Even renting one was financially out of reach for them. His father, in a moment of regret, apologized, expressing his wish to have provided unlimited gaming opportunities to him. This apology coincided with the collapse of his father's business. While his sister attempted to console his father, his mother shouldered the blame to herself. Lee found all this uncomforting. So faced with the grim truth of reality, he had no choice but to prematurely bid farewell to Arcana. However, had he foreseen this turn of events, he would have spared no effort to immerse himself fully in the game. Since he did not get to play for even a year, his level and stats are all shit. Now, even though he has finally managed to awaken his powers, the prospect of embodying a character crafted during his adolescent years held little appeal. As he sips his tea, an observation from his external self about its quality sends a jolt through him. Granful Claudi Arpus Romeo, the character he fashioned during the tumult of puberty, and to whom he was deeply attached, looms large in his thoughts. Granful was the successor to a once great family, but tragedy struck when a demon massacred them, leaving him as the sole survivor. Driven by a thirst for vengeance, he resolved to become a demon hunter. Reflecting on this narrative, Lee acknowledges it as a cringeworthy tale that he once played with and obsessively dwelled upon during his middle school years. Now as a grown man, he finds himself lamenting over these memories, considering them not as amusing anecdotes but rather as sources of acute embarrassment. His Granful persona remarks on his nostalgia for such memories, a sentiment that makes Lee squirm with discomfort. He tells himself to shut up and stop talking in this weird manner. Anxiously, he contemplates his upcoming day at work, his panic palpable as he questions whether he even function as a proper member of society with his current speech pattern. With a boss who relishes picking on him at every opportunity, Lee fears Granful's tendency to act impulsively may jeopardize his employment. As he grapples with this dilemma, Granful's insistence on standing firm in the face of adversity clashes with Lee's desire to maintain a semblance of professionalism. Frustratingly, everything Lee tries to articulate emerges in Granful's voice, leaving him feeling disconnected from his own identity. Recalling that most people claim there wouldn't be a big difference after assimilating with their in-game characters, Lee questions why he has been so profoundly affected. Considering his inability to function in a typical workplace environment like this, Lee acknowledges that his only viable option is to embrace a career as a full-time player. However, he confronts a significant obstacle. His recollection of Arcana is hazy at best, having last engaged with the game over a decade ago. He sits down at the computer, his first task being to research what it truly entails to become a player. The rewards for successful players, often amounting to hundreds of millions, catch his attention. However, he quickly realizes that such wealth comes at the cost of risking life and limb on the battlefield, rendering it meaningless. His Granful persona prioritizes the value of life over money, stating that he, Granful Claude Arpus Romeo, does not have any need for material goods as he has tasted the ends of abundance. With no real greed driving him, he decides to delve into the current practices of demon hunters. To his surprise, he finds only 2 wiki pages of information available and just a few news articles rather than comprehensive resources. He's stunned to discover that Action Base has fallen. Last night, all demon hunters NPCs in the town of Action were killed, with not a single survivor left behind. Action, a sole town to become a demon hunter, held the revered title of a holy land for these warriors. The news of Action's destruction baffles him. It seems inconceivable that such a pivotal location could be wiped from existence. He reflects that it is no way that nobody plays this role anymore, but because the role of demon hunters has basically been deleted. He recalls that demon hunters did nothing 10 years ago either, as they were burdened with low stats, an awkward build path, and feeble skills. Plus, leveling up through battling monsters proved to be a challenging feat for demon hunters, pushing them to rely heavily on the experience gained through completing quests. However, their expertise shone brightest when facing off against demons, a domain where no other class could rival them. Yet since demons only appeared in quests tailored for demon hunters, and most of the quests were infamous and required heavy grinding, the role of demon hunter, despite its specialized prowess, was widely regarded as pointless for the majority of gameplay. Moreover, the inability to progress to the next class compounded the issue, rendering the situation dire. With all NPCs thought to possess valuable skills now deceased, the outlook appears bleak. As he delves into a chat log discussing demon hunters, a particular comment catches his eye. It mentions new demons being introduced in an update, prompting him to investigate further. He discovers details about the reality update, which transformed demons into regular mobs, leading to a surge in player injuries due to their potent debuffs. Even season level 200 players find themselves struggling against these formidable foes. Lee ponders the discrepancy. If demons have indeed manifested in reality, why haven't the demon hunters intervened? The thought arises that he might be the sole remaining demon hunter following Action's downfall. Even if that is the case, he contemplates whether he should take the initiative despite his setback of a decade. He acknowledges that much could have changed in that time, considering even high-level players struggle against the current demons. Suddenly, his Granful self derides him as weak, asserting that the great Granful does not cower before mere demons as it is a matter of pride. Regardless of the temptations or taunts the demons may offer, they will never diminish Granful's pride. He resolves that it's time to take action, prompting himself to dismiss such contemplation as pointless hesitation. With thousands dying at the hands of demons, he vows to send them back to hell. Several years have elapsed since the Great Cataclysm, leaving destruction in its wake. Despite the devastation, humans have proven their resilience, gradually rebuilding and returning to normalcy as if nothing had occurred. However, where there is light, darkness inevitably lurks nearby. The negative emotions brewing within the newly adapted populace serve as fertile ground for the devil and other malevolent beings. In a chilling manifestation of this darkness, a man becomes entirely possessed, sending something ominous to a party where a devilish figure presides. Meanwhile, Tanker Nam Chiolman, the leader of a party, anticipates the imminent arrival of their final member. Granfell makes his entrance and Chiolman introduces him as the last addition to their group. They exchange pleasantries, but Granfell's focus is drawn to the rupture, a phenomenon visible only to players which has no effect on ordinary individuals who can simply walk through it. Granfell reflects that he would have been among those unaffected if he hadn't awakened. More importantly, the dungeon they're about to explore, Null's underground storage, is typically suited for players between levels 35 to 40. So, it is not a bad starting point for someone like Granfell, who is already at level 55. However, when he assessed the average level of players navigating the dungeon, he noted that they all hover around level 200, a milestone he's far from reaching at the moment. Granfell acknowledges that he needs to keep working hard to level up. However, fortunately, Awakening isn't exclusive to high-level players, so he's able to find a party with members at a similar level to his own. Meanwhile, all the party members introduce themselves to Granfell. The close-range tanker goes by Han Seong-wook, the close-range damage dealer is named Choi Jong-hoon, and the magic damage dealer introduces herself as Seo Jong-yin. Hyolman suggests that considering the progression rate, another party must have already ventured inside, so they'll follow suit. They agree to make final preparations and enter exactly 5 minutes from now. Granfell observes the destruction progress, which currently stands at 19.8%. This metric, known as the progress rate, indicates the imminent breakdown of the rupture. Once it reaches 100%, the rupture will rupture, unleashing monsters into the real world. Hence, players are permitted to raid the ruptures freely as only they can safely approach this ticking time bomb teeming with beasts. Lee appreciates the friendly atmosphere among the party members and feels compelled to say something as a party member too. He shares that as the only son with 3 sisters, he had to navigate daily survival amidst the tumultuous sister wars, therefore going with the atmosphere is a piece of cake for him. Instead of communicating this, his grandful self reassures the party that they need not worry with him around, while Lee is inwardly embarrassed by his grandiose statement, questioning why he has said that like a king. Xiumin inquires if everyone is familiar with the kind of monster a null is, to which Xiu Zhangyan responds that she has even battled one before. Han Xiangwut chimes in, expressing confidence that the mission will be a breeze as long as they remain vigilant and don't let their guard down. Lee realizes that his words go unnoticed, leaving him feeling ignored and his pride wounded. With a heavy heart, he resolves to remain silent, unable to endure any more of this disregard. They step into the Knoll's underground storage, specifically the food storage area. Inside, the scene resembles a typical station, albeit broken and with blood stains littering the surroundings. Upon reaching the stairs, Xiu Zhangyan remarks on the absence of gnolls despite the location's name. Xiumin reassures the party that a previous group likely passed through, that they needn't worry as they can simply claim their share by taking the correct route. The party expresses gratitude for their dependable leader, but Granful senses that something is amiss. As they encounter some gnolls, Xiumin urges everyone to prepare for battle. However, he impulsively charges in, his eagerness mistaken by the others as a keenness for combat. Granfell observes that their team's composition appears fairly standard, but is somewhat disjointed. The tanker, instead of protecting the party, is aggravating the monsters, while the damage dealer is assuming most of the defensive duties and the mage is doing most of the dealing. He wonders if this is the current norm for teams. He guesses it is not his problem as he is useless right now. Checking his inventory, he finds a few weapons but nothing particularly useful, prompting him to resolve to minimize combat until he acquires a suitable weapon. Suddenly, an arrow whizzes past him, alerting him to the presence of numerous gnolls lurking in the shadows, poised to attack with their arrows. Granfell swiftly warns the party. The gnolls emerge and initiate combat. The group finds themselves overwhelmed by the onslaught of gnolls, struggling to fend them off. In a shocking turn of events, their leader, Tanker Xiumin, abruptly abandons them. Zhanggun questions Xiumin's actions, expressing frustration at being left in such a dire situation. However, in his moment of anger, Zhang Hun leaves himself vulnerable to an attack, which a gnoll takes advantage of, nearly striking him with its blade. Just as disaster seems imminent, an arrow swiftly eliminates the gnoll with a single shot. The arrow was from Granful, who taunts that the beast requires training and doesn't quite suit him. Therefore, he recognizes the necessity to punish the gnoll and determines that he must be the one to deliver it. Zhang Hun expresses gratitude to Granfell, albeit feeling a bit unsettled by his manner of speaking. The party struggles to contain the gnolls, but 2 manage to slip past their defenses and target Xiu Zhangyan, who is at a loss for what to do. Granfell urges her to remain calm, assuring her that he will deal with the approaching gnolls and advises her to cast a powerful spell, even if it takes time to do so. Xiu Zhangyan agrees, and as she begins casting, Granfell takes aim with his arrows. Zhang Hun anxiously inquires about the progress of the spell, concerned as they are overwhelmed by the gnolls. Eventually, Xiu Zhangyan completes the casting and instructs everyone to clear the area. A multitude of fireballs erupt from the spell circle, resulting in a massive explosion that appears to eliminate all of the gnolls. Xiu Zhangyan expresses concern for Granfell's well-being, but he deflects her worry, suggesting she focus on her teammates instead. He gazes at the fallen gnolls, contemplating the possibility of retrieving his expensive arrow. Xiu Zhangyan offers Han Xiangwuk a healing potion, while Zhang Hun, consumed by anger, charges towards Xiumin, demanding an immediate explanation for his actions. He acknowledges that Xiumin might not have been aware of the hidden gnolls, but questions why he chose not to assist and effectively lead them into a death trap. Zhang Hun demands him to provide an instant justification. Xiumin responds with a smirk, followed by uncontrollable and raucous laughter. Zhang Hun, fueled by anger, rebukes Xiumin's laughter, questioning if it's funny to him. He asserts that without his famous brother, he would be of little worth and challenges his inflated ego. Suddenly, the lights flicker and extinguish, plunging them into darkness. Xiumin sarcastically responds to Zhang Hun's question, remarking that it's indeed funny to witness a group of fools flounder before him. At that moment, Granfell's natural enemy skill activates, and he reveals Xiumin's true nature as a demon. Xiumin finds it amusing that they only realize this now, mocking their delayed comprehension and branding them as exceptionally foolish. The party is utterly shocked to hear the revelation about Xiumin's true nature, struggling to process the notion that he is a demon. However, before long, they all find themselves affected by his skills. Each member witnesses their worst fears materialize before their eyes. Han Sang-wook sees his party members pleading for help as their skin melts away, their mental states plummeting to rock bottom. Succumbing to the fear status induced by the demon's abilities, the entire party is paralyzed by terror. Meanwhile, Cheolman observes the scene with amusement, laughing at the sight of these frantic humans trapped in the illusion of fear. Suddenly, Granful charges forward, nearly managing to strike the demon. The demon asks Granful does not he fears if this human dies, as if the demon perishes, so too will the human host. However, Granful remains focused on the battle, prioritizing his immediate task. He acknowledges the difficulty of penetrating Cheolman's armor and opts to target the gaps instead. Seizing the opportunity presented by the demon's missed attack, Granful counters with precision. Once again, Granful's natural enemy skill activates, his battle power surging in the presence of a demon. His attack lands, striking Cheolman's armor and causing it to crack under the pressure. The demon charges forward without a care in the world, dismissing humans as mere imposters of existence. He reflects that he was friends with this human, but now he wants to kill him. Granful swiftly slashes his face open, eliciting a pained wail from the demon. The sensation of the wound reveals to him that it was inflicted by silver. Granful commands him to refrain from speaking, asserting that he does not engage in conversation with his prey. Cheolman looks down and wonders where it all went wrong for him to become like this. He recalls the moment when his brother advised him to abandon his ventures into ruptures and instead pursue a career as an analyst at his guild. Though he understood his brother's concerns, Cheolman resisted the idea, unwilling to resign himself to a life of mediocrity. Sometime later, he faced ridicule from a group of individuals who were aware of his brother's stature, urging him not to tarnish the reputation of his esteemed sibling. All Cheolman truly desired was to earn his brother's pride and approval. That's when the imp approached him, offering assistance with a condition. Cheolman would watch from the sidelines while the imp took control. Succumbing to the imp's influence, Cheolman observed helplessly as his party teetered on the brink of death, brought to the edge by his own actions and the imp's malevolent machinations. With his morale at an all-time low, Cheolman felt trapped within the imp's grasp, unable to break free from its control. However, Granful's intervention disrupted the imp's hold, weakening its influence with each relentless attack. The demon pleads Granful to cease his assault, warning that the continued onslaught would result in the death of its human host. He questions Granful if he truly lacks any concern and is willing to bear the label of a murderer for the remainder of his days. Granful regards Cheolman, acknowledging his display of pride. In a swift move, the real Cheolman seizes and immobilizes his body, prepared to sacrifice himself to ensure the demon's death. Granful seizes this opportunity, swiftly decapitating the demon. Later, Cheolman regains consciousness with his head still intact. Confused and shaken, he trembles as he recalls witnessing his own decapitation. The rest of the party approaches, concerned for his well-being, unaware of the harrowing ordeal he has just experienced. Granful reiterates he has already told them that they need not worry as he is there to protect them. He explains that a human's negative emotions can empower demons, emphasizing the importance of maintaining pride and fearlessness. He reassures them that a demon hunter's attacks only affect the targeted demon. These words resonate with Cheolman to some extent. His Lee self also acknowledges that he hasn't forgotten this logic despite the passage of time. However, he realizes that the imp didn't drop a single item, indicating that he was still completely broke. Later that day, Cheolman visits his younger brother, the Gon Guild master Nam Taemin, and shares a post about a certain dungeon and a party whose leader was supposedly possessed by an imp. The comments dismiss the story as fake news. When his brother asks if he wants him to believe the story, Cheolman confirms it. Taemin expresses skepticism, cautioning against blindly accepting such stories. Cheolman then reveals that the party leader that was possessed by a demon was him. This revelation shocks Taemin, causing him to spill his coffee in shock. Taemin is taken aback by Cheolman's desire to quit being a player and become an analyst, as he had previously opposed the idea firmly. He finds it difficult to believe that Cheolman would consider such a drastic career change. Cheolman questions why Taemin doesn't trust his own brother, pointing out their shared blood ties. Taemin, feeling the weight of Cheolman's words, urges him to refrain from being sarcastic. He apologizes, acknowledging that he was only joking. Taemin then asks Cheolman if he's serious about becoming an analyst. Cheolman confirms that he is indeed serious, expressing his realization of his weaknesses and his desire to find his true role. He admits to struggling to keep up with Taemin until now, but now wishes to take pride in himself and forge his own path. Taemin reflects on Cheolman's remarkable transformation, attributing it to the individual who defeated the demon through him. He notes that this person remained unaffected by the abnormal status, suggesting an unparalleled mental stat. Taemin is intrigued by the fact that this person fought using a combination of dagger and magic. a class combination he's never encountered among the thousands in Arcana. He questions why this person chose to enter that specific rupture when his specifications could have tackled more challenging ones. Huelman acknowledges the incredulity of his story but earnestly asks Taemin to believe in him. Taemin expresses his complete trust in Huelman since he was witness to all of this. Taemin mentions the guidance he received from Huelman in boss pattern analysis, guild management, and scouting new players has helped him achieve his current position, so of course he trusts him. He then presents a contract emphasizing their familial bond and Huelman's status as the most prized GON analyst. Huelman, feeling embarrassed by the praise, expresses gratitude to his brother for his kindness. Taemin laughs heartily and prompts Huelman to review the contract to ensure the terms are satisfactory. Huelman complies, but upon finishing reading them, he breaks out into a profuse sweat, indicating his surprise with the terms. Back at the apartment, Lee notices a significant increase in his level, which fills him with happiness. However, Granfell dismisses it as too little of an increase. Lee explains that gnolls don't provide much experience, so killing a single demon resulted in a hopping 12-level boost. Granfell, uninterested in such trivial matters, observes Lee's concern and wonders how to spend his stat points efficiently. Feeling tired, Lee contemplates going to bed, but Granfell has other plans. He deems the place a mess and begins cleaning. Later in the evening, Granfell takes over cooking duties, meticulously preparing the perfect and healthiest dish he can. Lee finds himself starving, forgetting that Granfell adhered to regular schedules and practiced self-restraint. Nonetheless, he realizes that he's learned something crucial from emulating Granfell's traits, their application in the real world beyond just job and level. Ordinarily, he would have immediately showered and gone to rest, but he's gradually becoming healthier thanks to Granfell's influence. Reflecting on his own talents, Lee recognizes that they differ from Granfell's. He possesses aptitude for magic, capable of imitating spells after seeing them once, along with high intelligence and physical fitness. Granfell, satisfied with their progress, rewards himself with tea, yet remains curious whether these traits similarly manifest in the real world. Suddenly, he receives a lengthy message from Huelman, but decides to ignore it for the time being, deeming other matters more pressing. His priority lies in testing Granfell's ability to imitate spells just by observing them once. He pulls up several videos and begins his investigation. Meanwhile, Huelman and Taemin are taken aback by Granfell's curt response, a simple no. Huelman speculates whether Granfell received an offer from another guild, but Taemin dismisses the possibility, pointing out that their offer included a house, car, and covered expenses, along with a deal splitting profits at 9.5%. Taemin questions how any other guild could top such an offer. Huelman acknowledges Taemin's point but mentions the recent emergence of the Mage Tower in Seoul, attracting foreign guilds to establish branches in the area. Taemin wonders who would dare encroach upon their territory, prompting Huelman to explain that even if the offer didn't come from a foreign guild, all the top guilds are present in Seoul, suggesting it could have been one of them. Taemin slams his hand on the table, declaring that no other guild could possibly match their offer. He insists that the contract is so exceptional that he wouldn't even consider showing it to the higher-ups at GON. Determined, he rises from his seat and begins to get dressed, emphasizing that he cannot simply overlook this matter. Taemin asks Huelman to remember his appearance, stating his intention to bring Granfell into their guild before another guild swoops in to recruit him. Huelman considers how to best describe Granfell, acknowledging his enigmatic nature, while Taemin urges him to think quickly, aware that time is of the essence. Huelman considers Granfell's appearance and concludes that he resembles an aristocrat straight out of a fantasy novel, an exceptionally fancy one at that. Meanwhile, Granfell diligently records all the magical techniques he observed on his phone. Lee reflects on the fundamentals of magic, feeling confident that he can utilize these skills provided he has enough mana. He admires Granfell's intellect, attributing his previous cringeworthy behavior to his unparalleled genius. Granfell perceives Lee's reaction as rather impolite, while Lee, now equipped with newfound knowledge, decides to allocate his stat points more efficiently. Uncertain of how Granfell's talents will manifest, Lee remains open to all possibilities. He opts to invest 2 points each in stamina and agility, and allocates 7 points into mana, recognizing its current deficiency. Left with 1 remaining point, Lee reflects on Granfell's somber backstory, questioning why he had written such a dark past for the character. The final point Lee invests goes into luck, both for his own benefit and Granfell's, as they embark on their journey together. Though it is only a small increase, raising luck from 1 to 2 effectively doubles their luck. Lee muses that perhaps this boost will yield unexpected benefits like stumbling upon money on the street. However, the next morning he discovers something far more remarkable in the mirror, a complete class quest, the prologue of Counterattack. Out of nowhere, Granfell receives a class quest, Prologue of Counterattack. He wonders if it is really that kind of class quest he thinks it is. Upon conducting a search on his laptop, he discovers that quests have become scarce since Arcana transitioned into reality. The reason is simple. There are limited NPCs in the real world capable of assigning quests. Even a normal quest is much rarer than before. Yet what he has obtained is a class quest, which despite appearing ordinary quest to his Demon Hunter class, feels anything but. Given his recollections, this quest shouldn't be just any ordinary task. He stumbles upon an article detailing the experience of a Paladin class, rank 1 player named Guyver, who, like him, received a class quest. Such quests are exclusively bestowed upon a single individual among those sharing the same class. The significance of this event is immense, often making headlines in the top news articles. It's considered an extraordinary achievement, one that propels the recipient into the upper echelons of their class. Given his relatively modest level of 67, the revelation that he has received a class quest implies something profound. You might very well be the sole remaining Demon Hunter in the world. However, it does make sense as Action was the post of the Demon Hunters. Lee reflects that despite the prestigious reputation of Action, the reality proved to be far from glamorous. Their warm welcome consisted of scaling a daunting 1,000-meter cliff, setting the tone for the grueling training ahead. Lee quickly realized that the quests were nothing but repetitive and arduous tasks, while the facilities were severely lacking. Even the basic necessity of meals required climbing a mountain, and the instructors seemed more interested in shouting than teaching. For many, this harsh environment would have been reason enough to reconsider their choices. However, Lee, embodied by Granful's resilient spirit, found solace in the adversity. He recognized that enduring such rigorous training was essential for strengthening his mind against the invasive nature of demons. In the face of relentless challenges, Granful saw an opportunity for growth and embraced it wholeheartedly. Lee thinks that all of that is in the past and best left there. As Lee delves into the details of the quest he received, his expression quickly sours. Meanwhile, at the Anti-Arcana United Korean branch, employees bustle around engrossed in their tasks. It is an organization formed to mitigate the chaos and damage caused by the integration of Arcana into the real world. They hired all of the employees who had previously worked on Arcana and its development. In response to Arcana's impending update, which will have real-world ramifications, they gather and analyze data, ensuring its relevance to Arcana while providing insights for players. Essentially, they are overburdened professionals juggling multiple responsibilities. Meanwhile, an employee expresses his disdain for Arcana's existence, lamenting its impact. He inquires his senior colleague about the possibility of a new rupture update this week, given the time. The seasoned worker responds cautiously, suggesting they can only hope such an event doesn't occur. In a more casual tone, the employee remarks on Raymond's unsettling demeanor, speculating that he must be the one managing the homepage and consistently uploading content. The experienced colleague curtly advises against excessive chatter and urges him to focus on refreshing the page. The seasoned colleague explains that when they handle homepage content updates, they get the same things in real life shortly after. Suddenly, an update pops up on their screens, causing both employees to break out in a sweat. The entire office erupts into a frenzy of activity. One person begins drafting his resignation letter, while another frantically unplugs all the phones, fearing the inevitable barrage of calls from the press. The update revolves around demons, introducing a new rupture that includes the Count family's fortress, its surrounding territory, and territory outskirts. Additionally, new high-level monsters emerge, with the lowest being at level 220. Among them is a formidable named monster, Count Ascura, boasting a staggering level of 430. The laid-back worker shakes his head in disbelief, deeming the update insane. He notes that the current top player is only at level 403, making this update blatantly unfair and seemingly impossible to conquer. Even if a group of top-ranked players were to band together, they would still face insurmountable odds. The experienced worker interjects, stating that the issue isn't about individual players or even associations banding together. The magnitude of the threat posed by this update transcends what any collective effort could achieve. Seeking a glimmer of hope, the laid-back worker mentions the Mage Tower and its NPCs, wondering if they could offer assistance. However, the experienced worker dismisses this idea, explaining that the NPCs will only intervene if the tower itself is directly threatened. In this case, they are unlikely to intervene, leaving everyone essentially helpless. It's a grim reality where they're left to watch helplessly as people succumb to the overwhelming challenge of the update, which seems destined to end in disaster. The laid-back worker urges caution, advising against jumping to dire conclusions. He emphasizes the potential real-world consequences if they fail to tackle the rupture raid successfully. The experienced worker acknowledges that previous updates were challenging but manageable. However, this latest update shatters that delicate balance, presenting an unprecedented and seemingly insurmountable challenge. Unless some miraculous solution presents itself, they're in deep trouble. Meanwhile, Granfell shifts his attention to the quest in the game. It began with hunting a demon, a task he completed successfully. Now he finds himself faced with a repeated quest to train his weak body. Lee expresses his frustration at having to engage in physical labor once again, feeling as though he never truly left action in the first place. His entire body trembles with exertion, raising doubts about the safety of pushing himself so hard. He worries about the possibility of pushing himself to the point of collapse. Meanwhile, Granfell struggles to even make a sandwich due to the instability of his body. Panic spreads among the populace as the boss monster's seemingly insurmountable level leaves many guilds withdrawing from the raid instantaneously. Lee observes the unfolding events and reflects on the current challenges players face with demons. He notes how demons grow stronger with prolonged battles and how players must contend with the additional hurdles they throw at them. It's a common belief that one needs to be at least 10 levels higher to stand a chance against demons. Lee reflects that given Count Askura's formidable level, he would never even fathom fighting him. However, the class quest mandates him to hunt a vampire, and the only vampire currently alive is Askura. Despite his fear, Lee acknowledges it as a natural response to facing an impossible enemy. However, he recognizes that these are only his emotions as Lee, but his heartbeat is calmer than ever as this body is not his but Granfell's. He contemplates his feelings as Granfell, and as for Granfell, he anticipates his readiness to take action. Viewing these species as inferior threats encroaching upon his time, Granfell is likely poised to punish them for what he perceives as a grave sin. Lee expected nothing less from his determined companion, dubbing him a crazy bastard in his thoughts. Lee determines that his first destination needs to be the Mage's Tower in order to access the portal that can teleport him anywhere instantly, including Russia, where Count Askura is believed to be. Recognizing the significance of the Mage's Tower and its portals, Lee understands why many large guilds have branches in Korea. He decides that taking the taxi would be more efficient than navigating multiple train changes. As Lee makes his plans, Granfell announces his need to depart promptly due to the urgency of the situation. Lee protests, insisting that Granfell shouldn't leave so abruptly. Granfell pauses, realizing he forgot something. Lee is relieved by Granfell's change of heart, but his relief is short-lived as Granfell grabs a few packs of instant tea, deeming tea time as the most important part of the day. News outlets converge around the Mage Tower, preparing to interview the Gon Guild, who are expected to arrive shortly. A rookie reporter observes the multitude of journalists and inquires with a camera crew member about the likelihood of Gon's arrival. The crew member responds affirmatively, citing the proximity of the Mage Tower to the new rupture in Russia. Suddenly, the Gon Guild appears, with Taemin leading the way. The camera crew and other reporters rush forward, bombarding them with questions about their plans for raiding the rupture and whether they intend to collaborate with other guilds. The rookie reporter eagerly joins in, directing a question to Taemin about his strategy for facing Count Askura. Chiolman expresses a desire to conduct interviews later, but Taemin chuckles and admits that they lack a concrete method to defeat Count Askura. Taemin adds that they never really considered that kind of thing when entering ruptures anyways, and their decision to enter early was driven by the desire to outpace rival guilds. Consequently, they have no intention of sharing any information they gather, even if demands are made under the guise of promoting world peace. Taemin then questions the sincerity of those who advocate for world peace, yet refrain from confronting challenges directly. He suggests that true proponents of world peace should actively engage with the challenges presented by ruptures rather than passively watching from the sidelines. The rookie reporter is left speechless, grappling with how to respond to Taemin's blunt assessment. Suddenly, the Shining Guild arrives, led by their leader Lox, whose level stands at an impressive 399. Lox's arrival captures everyone's attention. Their butler remarks that they'll have to navigate the crowd on foot due to the congestion. One of the guild members comments on the harsh words from Gon's guild, to which Lox attributes to anxiety. He explains that with large guilds converging on Korea for the Mage Tower, their position is steadily declining. Lox taunts that Taemin is essentially staking everything on this expedition. Chiolman notices that Taemin is concerned. He offers reassurance, stating that there's no need to be anxious. Chiolman suggests that they approach the situation with patience and caution, emphasizing that taking things slowly is the best course of action. Taemin inquires if Chiolman attempted to contact Lee again, but Chiolman explains that he hasn't had the time, especially with the recent update keeping them occupied. Taemin speculates that if Lee is as powerful as anticipated, perhaps he will attempt to raid the rupture. He suggests they might encounter him at the Mage Tower. Meanwhile, on a bus, Granfell watches another video about magic. Reflecting on the extensive research he's undertaken, he realizes that this marks the 100th video he's watched on the subject. With this accumulated knowledge, he now understands the 3 levels of magic activation: inspecting the mana, interfering with it, and finally manifesting it. Granful, absorbed in his studies, unknowingly activates a fire skill while on the bus. The driver promptly warns him of the danger, prompting Lee to urge Granful to apologize, which he does somewhat pompously. Granful reflects on the newfound skill he acquired from watching a video, considering it a valuable addition to his repertoire, especially since he didn't possess many skills to begin with. However, upon checking his skill tab, he finds that the skill he just used isn't listed, suggesting a potential bug. Eventually, Granfell arrives at the Mage Tower, which appears strikingly different from the outside. As he approaches the portal, he senses something vague, as if he could also manifest this type of teleportation magic. Surprisingly, he finds this concept easier to comprehend than the ignition magic he encountered earlier. As Granfell navigates the area, a man carrying something accidentally collides with him, propelling him straight into the portal. Taemin chastises the man, insisting that he be more careful in the future to avoid any further embarrassment. Meanwhile, Shievelman notices the man who was pushed into the portal, briefly thinking he resembled Lee, but his thoughts are interrupted by Taemin's request for a briefing. Shievelman begins explaining that the new rupture is located in Russia, outlining its structure. The outer circle represents the territory's outskirts, with numerous entrances, followed by the inner circle, which encompasses the Count family's territory, boasting around 30 entrances. Lastly, the innermost circle houses the fortress Rupture, where the boss monster Count Ascura resides. While this layout is speculative based on shapes and patterns, there's a concern that if the Rupture breaks, Count Ascura's castle may manifest in the real world in Russia. Countless news outlets capture footage of the new ruptures, and even a vlogger begins live streaming their experience. Suddenly, Granfell arrives at the scene, and the vlogger, claiming to have been there first, insists that Granfell find another rupture. Granfell, lacking patience for such demands, sternly tells the vlogger to move aside. Meanwhile, Lee just intends to simply express feeling cold, but his words come out differently in the moment. He finds himself at the front of a rupture, the territory outskirts, hoping for a warmer experience from here out. Inside, a woman named Leonie Belusi, level 348, and the Berserker Guild master, is seen slaying zombies with her group. She's known for her tendency to use colorful language that often requires censorship. Granfell emerges on the other side of the portal, recognizing it as the outskirts of the territory. While Lee dislikes the colder environment, Granfell revels in it, finding the chilly weather invigorating, fueling his determination for the hunt ahead. Suddenly, ominous growls emanate from behind him, and as he turns, he sees several bloody wolves, all at level 230. Despite being only level 67 himself, Granfell remains undaunted, confident in his natural enemy skill to emerge victorious. Granfell surmises that these wolves are the Count's guard dogs, but he believes they've chosen the wrong opponent. Summoning his dagger, he declares his intent to teach them a lesson, making them realize the fear of being hunted. In a different area of the outskirts, Leonie's group takes possession of the dead wolves. Leonie herself begins to vent her frustration by kicking one of the already lifeless wolves while uttering words that certainly wouldn't pass U2's standards. Despite one of her guild members urging her to calm down, another dismisses the concern, stating that it's just Leonie's nature. Eventually, Leonie does calm down and surveys the now-dead wolf before her. Her guild members discuss how they've already dispatched dozens of these creatures, yet there seems to be no end to their numbers. Leonie notices a peculiar trait about the wolves. They exhibit no fear whatsoever. It's as if they're completely unaware of the concept of fear. When questioned by a guild member about her observation, another member sarcastically advises her against trying to appear clever, but Leonie insists that's not her intention. She explains that the lack of fear feels ominous, especially considering the absence of any signs of pain or distress from the wolves as they were killed. This realization leaves the party feeling unsettled and puzzled. Suddenly, a desperate howl echoes from a distance, distinct from the normal sounds of the wolves. It's a cry for help, a stark contrast to their aggressive behavior during the encounter. Perplexed by this sudden change, the group debates the significance of the howl. Leonie asserts that they won't know unless they investigate further, urging the party to follow. However, caution is advised by another member as their guild leader seems to be in a frenzied rush elsewhere. Meanwhile, Granfell prepares to engage the wolves with his bow. Despite its subpar craftsmanship, he senses the mana gathered at the arrowhead. Recognizing the potential, he interferes with the mana, manifesting flames around the arrow. With precision, he shoots a wolf, instantly killing it. The others are now hesitant to attack, but they also can't run away, knowing they can't escape Granfell's agility. Later, Leonie arrives and is struck by what she sees: a lone man among countless wolf bodies, enjoying some tea, presumably during his tea time. One of the guild members wonders if he has a fire arrow magic skill, while Leonie questions who this person is and why he would dress up in a suit for a rupture raid, let alone drink tea amidst all flames. Another guild member suggests he's likely a streamer who initially followed a guild but couldn't keep up, deciding to rest in this spot. Leonie finds it rather foolish and engages in conversation with the man, warning him of the danger in the area and urging him to leave immediately. However, Granville simply side-eyes her and continues sipping his herbal tea, ignoring her entirely. This infuriates Leonie, while her guild members struggle to stifle their laughter. Despite her attempts to scold him for his rude dismissal, the situation takes a sudden turn as new enemies arrive, swiftly surrounding them. The party prepares to defend themselves, but they're overwhelmed by the sheer number of adversaries, leaving them fearful and questioning where the enemies came from. These are bloodied bandits and appear to be at the same level as the wolves, standing at 230. Leonie quickly demands that everyone get into position, and they begin their attack. A guild member warns the party to exercise caution, noting that most of the bandits are armed with weapons. Leonie positions herself to activate her skills and swiftly slashes through numerous bandits in just a second, reassuring her party that they have nothing to worry about. However, their confidence is shattered when, from a nearby hill, countless archers emerge, their deadly red eyes gleaming even in the darkness, ready to unleash a barrage of arrows on them. A member notes that they are basically surrounded. He questions others what to do now. Meanwhile, Granville calmly finishes his tea, much to Leonie's astonishment. She's taken aback by his apparent disregard for the urgency of the situation, questioning his sanity. In her eyes, this is certainly not the time for tea. They should be fleeing. However, Granville seems unperturbed as he gazes at the thermos, assessing the situation. Before they can react, the bandits unleash a flurry of arrows, leaving Leonie and the others with nowhere to run. Granville begins inspecting the mana contained within the thermos bottle, meticulously studying its composition. With precision, he interferes with the mana, manipulating it according to his will. However, the next step is the most crucial: manifestation. To acquire the desired skill at the desired level, he requires an immense amount of mana, far beyond his current capabilities. If his assumption proves incorrect, the consequences could be dire. He may even lose consciousness attempting to manifest the skill. Yet as he ponders this, a revelation strikes him. What if the magic spells he's always employed aren't skills at all? This realization floods him with a surge of mana, imbuing him with a newfound understanding of its essence and potential applications. Suddenly, a large beam of blue mana erupts from the ground. Leonie prepares for the worst. However, instead of disaster, they are met with salvation. A giant wall of rocks materializes, shielding them from the countless arrows raining down upon them. Leonie is astounded by the manifestation, deducing that it must be alchemy, as she has never witnessed anything like this before. She reflects that the ability to create such a formidable barrier suggests an immense level of power. However, Granville corrects her assumption, explaining that what he's utilizing is not a skill, but pure magic itself. Without restraint, the other party members are equally surprised by the miraculous rescue, though grateful for the deliverance. However, they find themselves pondering Granville's identity and purpose. If he truly is an alchemist, they question why he's here, as alchemists are typically associated with production work. Leonie shares in their curiosity, particularly regarding Granville's assertion of magic. Granville muses on the nature of magic, considering the possibility of altering an object's form by interfering with its mana. While this concept aligns more closely with alchemy than traditional magic, it doesn't provide a definitive answer to their questions. Their discussion is interrupted by the rumbling of the wall as the bandits breach through, prompting Granville to ruefully postpone his tea time once again. As the guild prepares for battle anew, Leonie urges Granville to retreat to the rear for safety. Granville has other plans instead. Summoning his bow and arrow, he prepares to join the fray. As one member calls for a healer to tend to a gravely injured comrade, a bandit seizes the opportunity to strike from behind, leaving the injured member vulnerable. However, before the attack can land, a sudden arrow blasts the bandit away, leaving the members in awe of the unknown archer's skill. Leonie, surprised by Granville's proficiency with a bow, questions the purpose of the protective wall if Granville possesses such prowess. To add to the mystery, Granville envelops the arrow in flames, further bewildering Leonie. She wonders if he is a mage, yet he displays skills in archery, alchemy, and magic. The question of Granville's true identity remains unanswered. With the bandits dealt with and the area scouted, the guild members confirm that there are no more threats nearby. Leonie commends them for their efforts, acknowledging their successful defense. However, beneath her praise lies a simmering frustration directed at Granville. She finds his presence in such a perilous situation, dressed so casually, to be utterly absurd. Additionally, his evasiveness in response to her questions and apparent lack of fatigue only exacerbate her irritation. Despite these feelings, Leonie acknowledges the crucial role Granville played in their survival. It's a somewhat embarrassing realization, but without his assistance, they might not have made it. She contemplates whether he might be a rancor or something similar, noting his striking appearance as an inconsequential detail. Ultimately, she resolves to thank him for his help despite his earlier disregard for her. Suddenly, Granville stares at Leonie as he prepares his tea, causing her cheeks to flush with embarrassment. Hastily averting her gaze, she wonders why he's staring at her so intently, adamantly denying any personal fondness for him. However, Granville's unwavering stare ignites a whirlwind of thoughts in her mind. Could he possibly want to share tea with her, or something more? Lost in speculation, Leonie is snapped back to reality when Granville calls out to her. Tentatively, she asks what he wants, only to be met with a demand to stop looking at him in that manner, as he has no tea for her. Crushed by his abrupt dismissal, Leonie's spirit and confidence shatter completely. Outside of the rupture, countless drones patrol the area as a reporter from Today Arcana begins broadcasting. He highlights the global attention garnered by this update due to the introduction of the highest-level boss ever seen. Another reporter inquires if this rupture is named the Territory Outskirts, to which he confirms, adding that it's the first of 3 ruptures accompanying this update. While hundreds of ruptures lead to the same location, access to other areas will be granted later. He explains that the Shining, Gone, and other guilds are already within the rupture, but the question lingers, which guild will be the first to clear it? The reporter emphasizes that the guild achieving this feat will undoubtedly gain global fame. From inside a tent, a man observes the news updates while his assistant enters, suggesting that the director might want some coffee since he's the director after all. The man urges his assistant to come inside quickly to avoid letting in snow. The assistant questions why it's so dark in the tent. The director simply states that he prefers it that way. The director inquires about the rupture, asking if any new videos have come in. The man reports that everyone is currently concentrated around the middle of the rupture, with the Shining Guild leading the charge. Taking note of this, the director suggests positioning themselves near Shining and preparing to interview them first upon their emergence. Acknowledging that it will take forever to beat it, the assistant inquires if there is anything on the drones. Suddenly, the assistant spots something and rushes outside, disregarding the camera's view. The reporter apologizes for the assistant director's unexpected interruption as he dashes in front of the camera like a madman. The director urgently commands everyone to follow the assistant immediately as a rupture has just turned blue, indicating it's been cleared. In a frenzy, the reporter asks who might have achieved this feat, but the director lacks that information at the moment. Their priority is to hurry to the scene. Racing like the wind, the assistant reaches the blue rupture and is taken aback by what he sees. The assistant makes contact with the director, who is ecstatic and eagerly asks what he captured and which guild cleared the rupture, Gone or perhaps Shining. To the director's surprise, the assistant reveals that it's neither. Surprisingly, it's the Berserker Guild. Puzzled by this development, considering their rank is 32nd, the director confirms this information and requests the assistant to send him the video they captured. As they speak, the director observes that Shining Guild is still in the middle and has ventured into a new and dangerous area, but they all appear unharmed. Suddenly, the assistant spots a Korean person among the Berserker Guild members, which is unusual considering Berserker is a European guild. Other reporters start rushing in and the assistant resolves to try to get in front. Meanwhile, the director is extremely confused by the unfolding situation. The assistant rushes to Granville, bombarding him with questions about the possibility of an interview and his relationship with the Berserker Guild. As the questions continue incessantly, Granville demands that the assistant move out of the way as he is testing his utmost limits of his patience. The assistant is left shocked as Granville departs, as he found the place too cold. Meanwhile, the Berserker Guild is bombarded with interviewers asking tons of questions. Leonie, still fuming over her encounter with Granville, refuses to comment on any of the inquiries. Despite a guild member's urging to capitalize on their first major clear, she remains adamant, insisting they should interview Granville instead. Curious about Granville's whereabouts, Leonie asks, only to learn that he left first, expressing a desire to return home for a while. Leonie seethes with anger, and the reporters can only observe her meltdown. How could Granville leave in such a manner, especially when she was essentially acknowledging his solo victory over the entire rupture? She continues her tirade akin to a rabid chihuahua while her guild attempts to calm her down, suggesting that he must have had a good reason for his departure. Suddenly, a second rupture is cleared and the interviewers rush to cover it. The second clearers are gone, who appear exhausted and bloodied. As the interviews swarm around them, Taman notices the presence of the Berserker Guild. He is shocked at this sight, inquiring Berserkers are truly the first ones to clear it. That is when Leonie says something and her statement catches everyone's attention, including the interviewers. Later, at the base camp of the Gon Guild, Shiolman and Taemin watch the news while enjoying some well-deserved hot noodles. Leonie's remark about Gon not being the only good guild in Korea infuriates Taemin, especially as he notices her giving him some side-eye while making the comment. He questions why she's being so smug, especially considering their guild barely managed to clear the rupture before Gon did. Shiolman wonders what Leonie really meant by her remark, and Taemin interprets it as an insult, believing that no other guild in Korea is as great as theirs. He becomes so infuriated that he hands the ramen to one of their assistants. However, it's already empty as he had already eaten it all. Shiolman speculates that Leonie might have encountered a Korean player in the rupture, and Taemin suggests it could be from the Mythology Guild. However, they both realize they're still inside the rupture, and Taemin becomes uncertain about who it could be. Shiolman admits he's not entirely sure either, but there's only one person he can think of. Meanwhile, Granfell indulges in a hot shower while Lee dances around ecstatic to escape the cold and relish some well-deserved rest. Granfell finds Lee's jubilant behavior embarrassing, but Lee insists that after such a refreshing shower, he plans to enjoy a long and peaceful nap. However, Granfell's pause interrupts Lee's excitement, and he fears the worst. Unfortunately, his fears are confirmed as Granfell notices some dust, likely accumulated while they were away, prompting him to prioritize cleaning tasks. Lee is visibly distraught as he had been eagerly anticipating some much-needed rest. After completing the cleaning and improvising a meal from scraps, Granfell settles down to enjoy a cup of tea while Lee observes him. However, despite his earlier anticipation for rest, Lee finds himself wide awake. As he surveys the gear he acquired inside the rupture, he concludes that there isn't much of value. Turning his attention to his stats, he notes that his level has increased by 19, bringing it to 86. Considering the high difficulty of the rupture, the level gain seems modest. Additionally, he reflects on the effectiveness of magic compared to skills, noting that magic typically consumes less mana. This enabled him to utilize it more effectively, making it a preferable option over his skills. Granfell reflects on the slow regeneration of his mana. Lee explains that it's expected given their lack of accessories or equipment to aid in the process. He also considers the limited benefits of the Demon Hunter class, particularly in relation to skills. He realizes that they were fortunate to encounter the group that aided them, feeling a sense of gratitude towards them, even though he doesn't know their identity. Granfell remarks that it was because he was lacking. This comment makes Lee ponder over Granfell's trait of not knowing how to be humble. He recalls that when others underestimated him, he would prove himself, yet when they overestimated him, he would meet their expectations. Granfell emphasizes the importance of improving combat skills, especially with the next rupture looming in the Count family's territory. Recognizing the need to diversify beyond relying solely on magic, he plans to conduct a combat test today. Lee concurs with Granfell's assessment, recalling the combat skills demonstrated by their allies in the previous battle, particularly noting the prowess of the short-haired girl. Inspired by their techniques, Lee believes that emulating their movements could enhance their combat abilities. Despite Lee's protests, Granfell proceeds to activate another body training quest from the menu, prioritizing fundamental training. However, he acknowledges the need to attend to household chores first, emphasizing the importance of cleanliness alongside combat training. Lee struggles with the prospect of fitting sleep into his increasingly busy schedule. As he runs while listening to the radio, fatigue overwhelms him, leading to tears of exhaustion. Suddenly, the radio station interrupts its regular broadcast with urgent news. Most of the territory outskirts ruptures have been cleared, and the Count's territory will soon be available for raiding. However, alarmingly, the destruction progress rate of the Count's territory has skyrocketed to 60% despite it not being open yet. This rapid deterioration raises concerns among professionals, fearing that the Count's territory might collapse if the trend continues. The Gon Guild watches in dismay as the destruction progress of the Count's territory reaches an alarming 60%. Taemin expresses disbelief at the situation, questioning how such rapid destruction could occur within just a day. Shiolman elaborates, explaining that the time limit to clear the territory decreases as the strength of the monsters inside increases. Taemin ponders whether the monsters have indeed become stronger, considering the sudden acceleration of the destruction progress. Shiolman agrees, acknowledging the need for further investigation into this unusual phenomenon. At the Today Arcana camp, the director is in a frenzy, grappling with the sudden increase in monster strength. The assistant acknowledges the uncertainty, mentioning that even the advanced guild analysts are at a loss for an explanation. The director emphasizes the urgency of the situation, stressing that action must be taken to prevent a catastrophic outcome. If a rupture were to collapse in such a manner, civilians and players alike would face dire consequences, facing the threat of being overrun and slaughtered by the unleashed monsters. Granfell delves deeper into his research and uncovers a crucial detail. Such a phenomenon has never occurred previously. With the primary source of information, the action having been destroyed, it's understandable why this knowledge remains elusive. Realizing the urgency of the situation, Granville grasps the essence of the issue. Vampires wield authority through their blood. Count Ascura likely shares this authority with the monsters within the Count's territory, and upon their death, this authority naturally returns to the Count, who then redistributes it among other creatures. This explains the sudden surge in monster strength and the accelerated progression of the destruction rate. But even if that is the case, if they were to succeed in the raid, there's a high likelihood that the Count's fortress would collapse immediately afterward. Granville remarks that Count Ascura is not fit for the title Ascura, as an aristocrat doesn't take back what he granted others. Granville resolves that he will bestow judgment on this bastard, who is tarnishing the honor of aristocracy. While Lee finds this concept intriguing, he inquires Granville about sleeping. However, Granville dismisses him, emphasizing that he can sleep once he dies. Meanwhile, the Count's territory begins to fracture and crumble, and the countdown to its collapse ominously ticks away, leaving only 5 hours until the inevitable occurs. People start gathering around the Count's territory rapture, and streamer named Park Hwigang takes center stage on his channel, radiating determination. Broadcasting from the snowy mountains of Russia, he updates his viewers on the dire situation. The destruction progress of the Count's territory rupture has surged to a staggering 70%, leaving less than 5 hours before its inevitable collapse. The time ticks away, showing exactly 3:48 a.m. Undeterred by the early hour, numerous guilds have assembled at the scene. Pulling out his notebook, Park Hwigang prepares to share his insights with his audience, but the reception from the chat is less than enthusiastic, with many expressing skepticism. Undeterred, he presses on, explaining a crucial detail. Unlike the previous rupture, which boasted 200 entrances, the Count's territory rupture now features a mere 30 entry points. With such a limited number of entrances, several guilds have opted to enter the rupture simultaneously. However, the distribution of experience points, XP, and loot depends on each guild's contribution rate, necessitating a delicate balance for mutual benefit. The chat continues to diss him like usual, since they probably have nothing better to do. Despite the ongoing disparagement from the chat, Park Hwigang continues his broadcast. Suddenly, the chat erupts as viewers spot Chulman and other members of Gon Guild behind him. Hwigang turns around to confirm Chulman's presence, who greets his team. Taban wastes no time in inquiring about the situation at the rupture entrance. Chulman explains that after thorough investigation, competition appears inevitable due to the scarcity of entrances. Taban expresses their readiness to face any challenge as long as they are not pitted against the Shining Guild. Chulman reassures Taman not to worry about facing the Shining Guild, as they have ventured far north to confront the Unified Under Heaven Guild instead. Taman is taken back, considering the Unified Under Heaven Guild holds the second rank. Meanwhile, Hwigang's chat engages in discussions about the rivalry between the top two guilds. Chulman further reveals that Berserker is allied with Second Son and Bohemian, prompting Taman to acknowledge the cautious approach but express concerns about the limited gains in loot and experience. As Hwigang's chat gradually diminishes, he attempts to retain their attention, but it seems futile as viewers flock to other streams. Suddenly, someone arrives near them, and Taman's face contorts into a wicked smile as he shakes while asking what they are doing there. It turns out to be a fourth-ranking guild, Inazuma. Their guild master, Hisaji Kazuma, level 376 and 6th in the player rankings, remarks that it must be a coincidence to find the lowly Gon Guild standing in front of the rupture. Hwigang is surprised by Inazuma's presence, and his chat becomes even more intrigued. Taman notes that Inazuma was very insistent on not establishing a branch of their guild in Korea, so their plane must have just landed. Kazuma laughs it off, explaining that it's more economical to take the place to Russia than set up a whole branch in Korea. Taman asks if he's really challenging them, to which Kazuma responds that Gon isn't worth anything of value, so the world won't lose anything if they eliminate them. Both guilds start to exert their power and get ready to attack at a moment's notice. Hwigang is the first to catch this in action, and thinks that if he can record all of it, he just might make a fortune. That's when countless other streamers and reporters sweep beside him, rushing to see Gon and Inazuma in action. They rush in and ask tons of questions with no real rhyme or reason, while Hwigang just watches from behind, as that is the only thing he can do right now. Meanwhile, Chulman explains to Taman that he knows how he feels about Inazuma, but the destruction progress of the rupture is their biggest issue now. So if two guilds compete, everybody will lose, and there isn't enough time for that. Suddenly, the streamers around start saying that Inazuma is better than Gon, as is falling behind in 5th place. There's also the rivalry between the guild masters, which is quite sad, as Kazuma is 6th place, while Taman is a lowly 11th. All of these comments sting Chulman like bees, and they are both extremely riled up now and ready to go. Shielman explains that they were here first, so naturally it will not look good if they give up this space. He gestures to Taman to rip them apart, quite strangely, who happily obliges. That is how Gon and Inazuma went into the Easter rupture at the same time. The news gets wind of this and reports about their rivalry and how their respective rankings and nationalities are bringing a lot of attention to the situation. It is revealed that the first and second ranking guilds shining and unified under heaven are at the northernmost rupture, while the 30th ranked guild Berserker, the 7th ranked guild Second Sun, and the 3rd ranked Bohemian all went in together in the southern rupture. On the other hand, the destruction progress has already reached a dangerous 80%, so this is naturally causing fear and anxiety to be felt throughout the world. Meanwhile, inside the Count's territory, Granfell is having some tea, but the rupture he went through is unknown. He thinks that the most useful thing he got from the last rupture is the realization that running out of mana is extremely dangerous, so he had to figure out a way to use mana more efficiently during battle. The result is this magic designed from the alchemy skill, in which he shapes things into the stuff he wants. At first, to test things out, he got some rocks and changed them into a teacup and table. However, the more complex decor and detail he wanted, the more mana he had to spend, so it is not as efficient to use in battle. While pondering this issue, Granfell realizes one more thing. Suddenly, a few soldiers of the Count arrive, all of them level 300. Granfell puts his hand forwards and notes that if this is all the authority the Count gave them, it is quite pathetic, to say the least. A few rock formations rise above the soldiers and Granfell demands they turn back into dust. He uses the Restore to Original State skill and crushes all of them. With this skill, almost no mana is used, and Granfell notes that this best classified as reversal magic. I hope that you liked today's video, and if you did, hit that like button as today's like goal is 1,500 likes. Comment part 2 down below for the next part. Also, consider subscribing with the notification bell on to get notified as soon as a new video drops onto the channel. You can also join the channel to support me financially and watch videos before public release. I'll meet you in the next video. Until then, thanks for watching.